Hey, Leafs fans, hold on tight because the offseason is heating up. First, our team might bring in Evander Kane, that power forward who combines strength, grit, and skill, and could also pave the way to sign Jack Roslovic, the perfect partner Matthews desperately needs. But the craziest moment of the day comes from New York. Artemi Panarin, the Breadman, could be on the verge of leaving the Rangers if the season starts poorly. Can you imagine Matthews, Nylander, and Panarin on the ice together? It's simply spine-chilling. Two huge rumors, massive reinforcement potential, and the Leafs once again in the center of the NHL storm. News number one. Hey everyone, today I'm going to start with a picture that looks like it came straight out of a Netflix series. The Toronto Maple Leafs, full of talent, loaded with big names, but still with that gap in the roster that screams, we need to be tougher. And guess who enters the story? Evander Kane. Yes, that very guy, the one who's already been a controversial character, but also delivers a physical intensity that scares many defenders. And that's not all. This trade could open the door to bring in Jack Roslovic. Honestly, if this isn't a storyline worthy of a drama with twists, I don't know what is. Let's break it down because this rumor is one of those that makes you stop and think. Will this work or implode the locker room? Toronto is a team that breeds skill. Auston Matthews is the face of the franchise. Morgan really anchors the defense with his usual experience. And Matthias Maxelli arrived to give that creative spark to the offense. But talent alone doesn't win playoff hockey. If you don't believe that, just look at what the Florida Panthers did. They weren't champions because they had more stars, but because they played still hard, playing at a high level, suffocated opponents, represented short-term battles. That's the DNA Toronto wants to copy. And then comes the name of Evander Kane, 34 years old, nearly 2 decades in the NHL, and a reputation as a physical player who doesn't shy away from confrontation. He didn't play last regular season because he was recovering from injury, but when he returned for the playoffs, he proved he's still a competitive beast. 95 hits in 24 games. 95, that's an average of over 3 hits per game. And it's not just that. He also contributed 12 points in the postseason. So, besides being physical, he adds offensively. Honestly, this is exactly what Craig Berube wants. Someone who combines intensity with offensive presence. Now get this. The trade suggested by Heavy.com would send Max Domi, Kaye Jarnkrok, and Easton Cowan to the Canucks. Yep, not a minor trade. Max Domi, who's practically a citizen of the NHL world, switching teams as often as we change shows on streaming. Kaye Jarnkrok, a guy who adds depth and reliability on the third line. And Easton Cowan, who many see as part of the Leafs' future. The kid scored 69 points in the OHL with the London Knights. So it's that situation. You send a solid veteran, another dependable guy, and a hot prospect. Is it worth it? And that's where the second part of this story comes in. Because this move isn't just about bringing Kane. It's also about opening space and finally signing Jack Roslovic. His name has been on Toronto's radar since the start of free agency. And I'm not the one saying it. It's Elliot Friedman, one of the most respected NHL insiders. According to him, the Leafs are still very much alive in this pursuit, but they're not alone. 5 or 6 other teams are also eyeing him. So freeing up money is essential. And with Domi, Jarnkrok, and Cowan out, that money appears. Roslovic isn't a player to replace Mitch Marner. Nobody is, let's be honest. But he can bring speed, creativity, and a bit of that offensive connection Matthews has desperately needed since Marner left. The big question is this enough to make the Leafs take the next step? Toronto fans are tired of seeing this story. An exciting regular season, disappointing playoffs. And Berube was hired to change that. The coach doesn't want a pretty team. He wants a team that annoys, provokes hits, and takes hits without complaint. Back to Kane. The stat that impresses me most isn't his points. It's the physicality. In 2023-24, he set a career mark with 248 hits in 77 games. That's over 3 hits per game. And stats like this aren't trivial. They're a difference maker. Because when you face teams like Boston, Florida, or Carolina in the playoffs, controlling the puck isn't enough. You need to take hits and dish them back. Kane does it with gusto. And I'll tell you, having a guy like that alongside Matthews can change the face of this team. Of course, you can't ignore the other side of the coin, the risk. Kane is a player who either fits perfectly and becomes a hero or becomes a locker room problem. He has a history of complicated off-ice moments and a strong personality that doesn't always mesh with tight-knit groups. So imagine the pressure in Toronto, one of the craziest hockey cities. If something goes wrong, it becomes a headline in seconds. On the other hand, you give up Domi, who, despite not being a star, is versatile and energetic. Jarnkrok is defensively reliable, and Cowan could explode in the future. So it's that classic dilemma. Do you bet on now with Kane and Roslovic or hold for the long-term project? And look, considering Matthews is at his peak and the window of opportunity doesn't last forever, I get the temptation. In the end, all of this seems part of a bigger plan. A heavier, more physical Leafs team, better prepared to fight in the playoffs. And you know what? It makes sense. The team doesn't need another skill player. It needs a guy who steps on the ice and makes the opponent think twice before making a move. Kane is that guy. And if Roslovic comes, you can balance skill and strength. Now, the burning question, will it work? Because, honestly, Toronto has tried everything. They've signed veterans, bet on youth, changed coaches, switched GMs. And the story remains the same. Sky-high expectations, sharp decline in May. So, if this trade happens, I'll be watching every game with popcorn in hand. Because this is all the makings of an absolute success or total chaos. And we love chaos, don't we? At the end of the day, this is the NHL, a league that feels more like a reality show every day. And Toronto is a perfect protagonist. Full of drama, controversial decisions, and a fan base that doesn't forgive. If Kane and Roslovic really wear blue and white, get ready for a wild season. Now tell me, would you make this trade? Or do you think the Leafs are about to make another historical mistake? Comment below, because I'm curious to know if you're on the Bring Kane team or the for the love of God, don't touch this team. News number 2. You know when you think the Maple Leafs offseason will be calm, and suddenly rumor after rumor starts popping up? Yeah. Welcome to the parallel universe called Toronto, where every big name available becomes a collective obsession. And now, the name in the spotlight is one that would honestly excite any fan. Artemi Panarin, the famous Breadman. Yes, him, one of the most skilled players in the NHL, who suddenly keeps appearing more and more in speculation. This isn't just smoke, there's fire behind it. Why does this rumor carry weight? First, because the Rangers are in a confusing phase. That team that looked ready to compete for a title is now on a roller coaster of decisions. They've already shuffled the roster, traded veterans, and are in a climate of uncertainty that leaves room for big changes. Insider David Pagnotta added fuel to the fire when he asked, "What's going to happen with Panarin? If everything stays the same, will they accelerate trade talks?" This opens a huge door, because if New York stumbles at the start of the season, they could very well decide to speed up a rebuild. And who will be watching closely? Of course, the Leafs. Now, think about the situation in Toronto. Brad Treliving cannot afford mistakes. He took over the team with a very clear mission: turn talent into results. Because, let's be honest, patience is over. The usual storyline has grown tiresome. Solid regular season, renewed hope, and then a frustrating elimination. With the Panthers turning into a playoff machine, Tampa Bay always competitive, and teams like Carolina and New Jersey raising the bar. Toronto needs, despite still playing at a high level, depth alone represents a short-term. They need something that changes the face of their offense. And that's where Panarin comes in. This guy isn't just good, he's a game changer. We're talking 870 points in 752 career games. In 2022-23, he scored an incredible 120 points with 49 goals and 71 assists. An offensive talent that very few teams could even dream of having. Oh, and before anyone questions his playoff performance, 61 points in 73 postseason games. He's not the type of player who disappears when the pressure is on. He shows up, he decides. Imagine that alongside Austin Matthews and William Nylander. That would be one of the most dangerous trios in the league, easily. But, as always, there's a problem. And here the problem has a number. $11.6 million. That's Panarin's cap hit. And honestly, fitting that into the Leafs' current space is almost an impossible puzzle without bold moves. We're talking about moving important pieces. Maybe Morgan, really? Hard to imagine, but not impossible. Another option could be putting together a package including names like David Kampf, Max Domi, and maybe someone like Brandon Carlo. Together, they get close to $9.5 million, but still don't cover everything. And of course, New York will want serious return. This isn't just any player, he's elite, even at 33. So expect first-round picks, promising prospects, maybe even someone like Easton Cowan entering the conversation. And here comes the big question. Is it worth it? Because this would essentially be a luxury rental. Panarin is under contract for just this season, and then becomes a UFA. So Toronto could spend picks in young players, sacrificing depth, just to have Panarin for a few months. And if they don't win the Stanley Cup, it all goes up in smoke. This is a type of move that either makes a GM an eternal hero or the favorite target of fans and media. And in Toronto, where every decision has a potential for scandal, the pressure is even higher. Now, let's imagine the other side. Why would the Rangers do it? Because the team seems to be in a dangerous middle ground. Not bad enough to fully rebuild, but not good enough to compete with Carolina, New Jersey, or even Washington. And if the season starts poorly with losses piling up and playoff chances slipping away, it makes sense to trade Panarin for assets that help in the future. We've seen this before with other teams. And let's be honest, keeping such a heavy contract for a team that won't compete is a luxury that makes no sense. But let's get to what really matters. How Panarin would change the Leafs. Close your eyes and imagine power play with Matthews, Nylander, and Panarin. 3 players who think the game at a level above everyone else. The Breadman bringing insane vision, impossible passes, creating space where nobody sees it. This isn't just reinforcement. It's a change of identity. Toronto would go from a team with 1 or 2 weapons to a defensive nightmare for any opponent, especially in the playoffs, where every detail counts. Panarin isn't just skill, he's experience, he's presence. He's the type of player who can turn a series with a single play. Of course, there's the other side of the coin, and it's a heavy one. Losing depth can be costly. Playoff hockey isn't just about stars. It's about third and fourth lines functioning solid defense. If Toronto trades away 3 or 4 pieces to bring Panarin, they risk becoming unbalanced. And again, there are no guarantees. At the end of the day, the trophy doesn't go to the team with the most talent on paper. It goes to the team that plays best on the ice. To me, this is the typical situation that defines a GM. Play it safe, maintain balance, try smaller reinforcements, or go all in, bring a player who changes everything and hope it works out. And I'll tell you, after years of frustration, maybe it's time to take the risk. Matthews is at his peak, Nylander too. The window won't stay open forever. And if Panarin really hits the market, there will be a line forming. If Toronto doesn't act fast, someone else will. So I ask you, would you do it? Give up depth, prospects, and picks to have Panarin for 1 season? Or play it safe, betting that balance is worth more than explosion? I'm curious because, honestly, this rumor has all the ingredients to explode in the coming months. Keep an eye out, because if the Rangers stumble early, this story will catch fire. And when that happens, rest assured, the Toronto Maple Leaf saga will gain another chapter that we won't be able to stop watching.